Hi, I can see my screen and can you also see me and can you also hear me? You can type yes in the
Yeah,
chat. Okay, great. Thank you for your confirmation. So, as you all know that today our topic for discussion is Piaget's theory of cognitive development, and it is going to be a very interactive session. I'll not just be teaching you, but I'll also be telling you very important entrance specific things and the type of questions that are asked. We'll also be solving some MCQs together. I'll also be telling you some tips to remember important concepts, some mnemonics, and some strategies. So you can expect this to be very interactive, and you can also have a notebook and a pen handy because I'll be sharing a lot of things that are not there in the PPT. All right. So let's get started with the session. So cognitive development is a very important portion from the subject known as lifespan psychology. And all major master's entrances have questions on lifespan psychology. And the most important ones are, of course, CUET PG. And even more important than that is Xavier's, because the course that is offered by Xavier's is called MA Psychology Lifespan Development. Then even Christ and Mahe, for all these specific entrances in colleges, this topic is very important. That's why we've chosen it. So to understand what is cognitive development, I want you all to type in the chat box one example of any cognitive activity that comes to your mind. So whatever is comfortable, if you want to type it in the chat box or if you want to, unmute yourself and say it out loud, I want you to give examples of cognitive activities. So I'm seeing Asmita is saying studying, then Dikshita is saying memory, Gia is saying critical thinking, Gauri is saying perception, Avni is saying problem solving. Yes. So cognition is nothing but mental activities, and you all are right in saying problem solving, perception, memory, learning, all these are cognitive activities. Decision making is also one. Now, according to the definition of Oxford, there's a mnemonic that you can use to remember what these cognitive activities are. And the mnemonic is PLUK, which is PLUK, which is perceiving, learning, understanding, and knowing. So these are your cognitive activities. Now, what is cognitive development? Basically, someone who is 5 years old as compared to someone who is 40 years old, their learning capacity, their memory capacity is not going to be the same. Even the thought process, the complexity of the thought, the quality of the thought is not going to be the same, right? You'll expect a 5-year-old to have different cognitive capacities and a 40-year-old have to have different cognitive capacities. Why does this happen? Because this person has grown, developed, and evolved with age. So, the same development that occurs in cognitive activities, development of thinking, development of learning, development of memory, development of decision making capacities, that is known as cognitive development. Okay. And the same thing is written here as well in our PPT, that it is the progression of mental processes, such as the ones that we discussed right now, thinking, learning, reasoning, memory, problem solving across the lifespan, right? Across the lifespan means from conception to death. It doesn't mean childhood to old age, it's literally conception to death. From the period when the zygote is formed inside, like in the prenatal period, from that period to death, this entire portion is covered in lifespan. Okay. Now, there are some theorists who have given their own theories of cognitive development, and these are four of them. Piaget has given his own theory. Vygotsky has also given his theory. There's someone known as Robiquez who modified Piaget's theory a little bit, and there's also the very famous theory of mind. But we don't have to do all of them. For the master's entrance level, only two of them are important, such as Piaget's theory and Vygotsky's theory. Okay. Now, a follow-up question that comes to my mind here is that um, there is a neurodevelopmental disorder, and one of these theories is oftenly associated with that. Does anyone know which one it is? Theory of mind is associated with which neurodevelopmental disorder? Is anyone aware of that? Yes, ASD is correct. Autism spectrum disorder. Very good. Shri Kirti, that is the correct answer. Now, coming back to theories of cognitive development, Piaget and Vygotsky is relevant for us. So, in today's session, we'll try to do as much Piaget as we can. we may not be able to complete the entire Piaget because it's a very long theory. But let's see how much we can do at a pace where you are able to understand and at a pace where we are actually prioritizing quality more than quantity. Okay. So let's try to have a baseline assessment of what you already know about Piaget's theory. So we have a screen here, and all the participants have an option to write on the screen, to type on the screen. So any word that comes to your mind when you hear the word Piaget's theory, any word or any key term about Piaget that you know about, anything that comes to mind about Piaget. So I see Mahima using the pencil, and she's written sensory motor, which is correct. It's one of the stages. I'm so sorry, Mahima. I'll actually have to erase it to make some space for others also to write. Yes, observed his own child. Gauri is correct. So can you all like type it instead of drawing it, because that will be more easier for you. It will also create some space for others. So observed in his own child is correct. Sensory motor is correct. Sensory motor is the first stage of development given by Piaget. If this is getting a little difficult to write, then you can also write it in the chat box. It'll also be quicker for us. Formal operational stage, yes. Can you all use the chat box to write whatever comes to your mind? Okay, someone is saying pre-operational. Yes. Pre-operational equilibrium cognition. Yes. So you all already said the names of the three stages. Someone said sensory motor, then someone said pre-operational, someone said formal operational, but there is one stage that is left. Which stage did you all miss? Which stage is left? We did sensory motor, pre-operational. Yes. Concrete operational stage is the one that's left, and now you have all mentioned it. I also see you mentioning equilibrium schemas. Yes. So, the basic idea that I've gathered is that you are aware of the different stages that exist in Piaget's theory, but that's not the only important thing about Piaget. Even before we get into the stages, it is important for us to understand the basic concepts of Piaget's theory. What did he even say about in his theory? What are his views on development? That's something that many students miss out on, and we don't want to do that. So we will be starting with the very basics, ensuring that nothing is left, ensuring that we even do those topics that most students miss. All right. So here's like the theory overview of Piaget. Here's everything that you need to do. And as you can see, it's much more than just the stages. Firstly, we'll be starting with the general overview of his theory. What was his perspective on development? What were some important points about development that he gave? Then we'll also be focusing on these concepts, schemas, assimilation and accommodation, equilibration. And especially I'm highlighting this because there are quite a lot of MCQs from this, and students tend to get confused between these two concepts. So we'll try that at least this is something that we get clarity on. Then the four stages of cognitive development will come with their further sub stages. Then limitations of each stage is very important from entrance perspective, especially CUET, because I have seen many questions in CUET where they ask you pick the odd one out. Which one is not the limitation of this particular stage, right? So just to give you an example of the previous year question that is asked, limitations of each stage is very important for MCQ perspective. Then there are two more topics, applications of Piaget and criticisms of Piaget's theory. This is little relevant for subjective based questions and interview based questions. I've not seen very much of objective MCQ questions from these topics, right? But this is like the entire overview that needs to be done in Piaget's theory. Okay, so let's start with the main theory. So this person right here is Piaget. And a little background about him, little background about how he came up with this theory, what he thought about development. So, firstly, he was a Swiss psychologist, and he was one of the first people who did work in this field, in this area of child development. And the work that he's done is based on a lot of observation of his own children. So, he was the father to three children, and he used to observe them, how they are playing, how they're interacting with their environment, the kind of things they're doing, how is their cognitive development happening. So he used to observe that in his children, and on the basis of his observations, he came up with his theory, right? Now, people usually have a lot of concern with the generalization of this theory because how can you just have a sample size of 3 children and base an entire whole theory on the basis of that, right? So he also observed many more children in the future so that he can supplement his theory, increase the sample size, and make it more scientifically valid. So this is the basis of his theory, how he's come up with it, right? And because he has made so many contributions in this field, he is also known as the father of cognitive development. So if they ask you who is the father of cognitive development, you know that they're talking about Piaget. Sometimes they will not even use the word Piaget. They'll just say that, tell us that the father of cognitive development, what are the 4 stages that he's given? And you may be wondering that who is this person that they're talking about? How do I know which theory he's given? Which stages are there in his theory? But once you know that Piaget is the father of cognitive development, it will be easier for you to establish the links and understand what they're talking about. Next, you must be looking at this new word, genetic epistemology. And you must be wondering, what is this fancy word? I've never, come across it. And even when we were doing this activity, nobody really mentioned this word. So, for all those who are seeing this word for the first time, if genetic epistemology is like a new word for you, can you like raise your hand so that I can get an idea that how many of you know this, how many of you don't know this? For who all is genetic epistemology a new word? Okay, I see 7, 8 hands raised. Now, surprisingly, there are a few students who have not raised their hands. So I'm kind of assuming that they know what genetic epistemology is. So the person who has not raised their hand, would you like to unmute yourself and try explaining what genetic epistemology is? And let's not take help from the slide. I really want to know what is your understanding. So let me randomly pick someone. I'll take some names. So I see Akshara's hand was not raised. So Akshara, do you know what is genetic epistemology? And I'm not calling you out. It's okay if you don't know, like whatever is your understanding, you can share it in the class. Or if someone wants to, type in the chat box if they're feeling very attacked. Would anybody like to give it a try? Or if you want me to explain, then just write explain in the chat box and I'll also explain.
Can I try to answer?
Yes, who's this? This is Shri Kirti. Yes, please go on.
Genetic epistemology has to do with how knowledge is acquired through the entire developmental process.
Yes, yes. So, can we all react the clapping emoji for Shri Kriti because she is sort of there, and that's like a good understanding for us to begin with. So everyone is clapping with you, so that's nice. Okay, so let me build up upon what you said. I'll tell you what genetic epistemology is. So, whenever you come across such fancy words, let's try to break them first and understand what each word means. So, what is the meaning of epistemology? Epistemology is nothing but the study of knowledge. ठीक है? Study of knowledge is epistemology. मतलब how do you gather knowledge? What do you need to do to gather knowledge? How do you study basically? And we know what genetic is. It's like the biological makeup, right? But in this context, genetic epistemology means that understanding how development takes its course, understanding how origin happens. So, because Piaget's theory is about cognitive development only, he's observing children from a very young age, right? So, that is what genetic epistemology is, the development of children, the origin of children, studying how it is happening, studying how development happens. That is genetic epistemology. And I hope that this scary word does not look as scary now that you've broken it down, you've understood what it really means. Okay. So now there are some important points in his theory again that need to be done. The first thing being that it is a theory of cognitive constructivism. All right. Um, I think there's something at the door. Just give me a second. Yes. So sorry for the disturbance. And have you all understood the concept of genetic epistemology? You can do a thumbs up if you have understood, and then I'll move forward. If you have not understood it and you want me to explain it again, you can do a thumbs down. But if you have understood it, you can do a thumbs up. Okay, so I don't see any thumbs down. So I think you all have understood it. So let's move to the next concept, which is cognitive constructivism. All right. So Piaget is someone who says that rote learning and things like, I've just given you the PPT, read it and understand it yourself. That's not how development actually happens. According to him, development happens by directly interacting with the environment. Okay, so that is what is known as constructivism. So, to give you some examples, let's say that there is a school child and he's sitting in a maths class. So, if you tell the child that 10 plus 10 is 20 or 20 plus 30 is 50, so if the child is given such information that this is what this means, this is the PPT, these are the numbers, go and learn it yourself, go and do rote learning. So that is something which will not really contribute towards this development because the child is not interacting with the numbers, the child is not actively doing something, the child is not doing anything to interact with the environment to actually construct some knowledge, right? But at the same time, if you use some materials with so that the child can interact, let's say you use some beads, okay, like those beads that come, you give 10 red beads to a child and then 10 blue beads, and then you're like, with the help of these beads, bring them together and then start counting it one by one. So if the child literally starts interacting with the environment like this, then he'll get a better understanding of how maths actually happens, and that will be much more better than the basic rote learning. So constructivism means that we construct our knowledge by directly interacting with the environment. If I can put it in a very simple line, constructivism means we construct. So the word construct from constructivism, we construct knowledge by directly interacting with the environment and not by just doing rote learning, not by doing just normal information giving, information sharing. It is done only by directly interacting with the environment. And the beads example that I've given you to teach maths is a good example. Another example is that, let's say there are architecture students and they have to be taught about how a building has to be made, right? Now, if they're simply given a book or a PPT, जिसमें लिखा है that building foundation should be strong and then first floor should be made like this, there should be ventilation in the window, all of that. So, okay, that's fine. But how will they really understand it? If you give them 3D blocks, those Lego blocks that come, give it to them and let them interact with it. When they'll start creating a building out of it, they will learn from their experience that when the foundation is not very strong, it's a possibility that the upper floors may break because there's no solid foundation. So by making a mistake, they will understand, they'll learn that, oh, a foundation should be strong, right? So this is what it means to construct your own knowledge by directly interacting with the environment. And let me tell you that in a university like Christ, especially in their interview, they can ask you application-based questions such as these, that how will educational psychologists apply the theory of Piaget to make classroom learning a better experience. So Christ loves to do that. So just anybody who is interested in that course, that would be a good thing for you. So that is what constructivism means. And we've already discussed what cognitive is, right? So to read it, a cognitive constructivist would be a person who believes that knowledge is actively built by thinking and interactive with the environment. And Piaget says that children actively construct their own understanding through experiences rather than just rote learning or passively receiving information. Now, can someone give me an example of how you can learn psychology like this? Like, let's say that you are a teacher who likes to follow Piaget's theories in the classroom. So, how will you apply Piaget's theory to teach psychology in a better way to someone? So, how can you really teach psychology to students from a Piagetian perspective? So Ashmita's hand is raised. Do you want to answer that question or was it raised by mistake?
No, no, to answer.
Yes, go on.
So I feel like in most Indian institutes, even now, the approach is mostly spoon feeding and just kind of reading books and lecturing students. However, I think by using Piaget's approach, it would be more of hands-on learning, what we call practical experience. If it's for subjects like science and all of that, going to labs, if it's something like computers and even psychology for that matter, going to labs, conducting interviews, observing a lot of interviews and all of that, and just absorbing what's happening in the environment, rather than just reading books and, as you said, rote learning.
Yes. And thank you for sharing that. So, this reminds me of our very own experience. You know that psychology students often get a little upset over the fact that internships do not offer practical exposure. Internships में बस PPT लगा के रख देते हैं and there's not much of a learning happening. So this exposure that they're asking for is nothing but constructivism, where they can construct their own knowledge by directly interacting with the environment. Okay, so in your masters, you will get to actually do this. You will get to take on clients like the pro bono internship that's there in most master's courses. When you take in case history MSc with the client, when you take therapy of the client, you are directly interacting with the client. And based on that conversation, you're constructing a lot of knowledge about, oh, this is how therapy happens. This is how client really behaves like in a therapy setup. And this is how I have to ask my questions. So that is so much better than just reading books and doing PPTs, because that really helps you construct your own knowledge. And Avni has also written in the chat box that we show all teaching in game or interactive way. Yes, that's also correct. So, Sanjana, do you also want to contribute to this?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, I have an idea that, like in a psychology background, when we do up a, like when we do go for the clinical, for example, and we teach like students like what are the symptoms, what can be like in a bookish manner, we can morely focus about the case study format. Like we show in a theater or so some video of a person, like if a person have a schizophrenia or a depression, and we ask students to find themselves out that what the particular disorder is. So it would be the practical
Yes.
approach.
Yes. Again, that's a good example. So thank you for contributing, everyone. And that gives me an idea that you have understood what this concept of cognitive constructivism means. Okay, so let's go on to the next slide. So, three more important points that he's given about his theory. Firstly, he said that development is invariant. What does it mean? Invariance means that the development happens in a step-by-step manner, one after the other, and every stage is in a fixed order, like tuck, 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 1, 2, 3, 4. And he says that development can only happen in one particular fixed same order and no stage can be skipped. So if the correct order is sensory motor, pre-operational, concrete operational, formal operational, it has to follow the same sequence. And it is not possible that the person will start with sensory motor and then the person will go to concrete operational, skipping pre-operation in between. That is not possible. No stage can be skipped, and development has to follow the same one by one course that it has given. So that is what invariance means. Okay. The second thing he said about his theory is that development is universal. which means that regardless of your culture, regardless of your nationality, regardless of your language, development happens in the same way in every child, and every child goes through the same stages. So whether we're talking about an Indian child, or we're talking about an American child, or we're talking about a British child or an Australian child, regardless of the language or culture, every children is going to go through the same stage: sensory motor, pre-operational, concrete operational, formal operational. This particular point received a lot of criticism later. And if I ask you, what do you think could be some points for you to criticize on this particular point? Like, do you all agree that development is universal, or do you think that it is not really possible for development to be universal across cultures? Do you think there's some cultural difference here, or do you agree with the fact that development is universal? So if you agree that development is universal, you can write agree in the chat box. But if you disagree that no, it cannot be universal, there must be some cultural differences, then you can write disagree. Okay, so most of the people are agreeing, but two are disagreeing. Dikshita and Shri Kriti are disagreeing. Yes. And Priyanka is also disagreeing. Yes. So the ones who are disagreeing, what makes you disagree? What reasoning do you have to believe that it is not universal? So you can unmute yourself and answer. I'm talking to the ones who disagreed. So that's Shri, Kirti, and Dikshita, and Priyanka. Why do you disagree?
I think it's not going to, development will not be universal, maybe cognitive development to an extent, but your cultural factors and also socio-economic background, all of these factors come into play. So this will impact your cognitive development as well, the resources that you have access to, all of these different things. So I disagree.
Yes, yes, you're right. And this point received a lot of criticism because the textbook that I've referred to make this PPT, which is Feldman's Lifespan Development, there also this example has given that consider a child who is living in an African village, and then consider a child who is living in some American urban place where he has access to good quality education, infrastructure, technology, AI to learn, right? So there is already a lot of disparity in the opportunities that these two children are receiving. There are socio-cultural differences, right? Access to opportunities, socio-economic differences are also there. So because of that, can you really come to a conclusion that if you give the same cognitive problem to both the children, will they be able to come up with the same answer? Now, all those who have written agree, I would like you to rethink a little bit, and I would like you to give an updated answer. Do you still agree, or now do you disagree? Because we just compared this child in African village versus the child in American city who has access to so many opportunities, resources, AI, and all those things. Of course, the person who is going to receive more opportunities, his development would be different. So, what do you think? Now, do you agree or do you disagree? Yes, so now I see people disagree. And that's only one response. I also want to hear from the rest. Is there someone who still agrees कि नहीं, मेरे को तो लगता है कि अभी भी same है? Okay, Ashmita, Mahima.
It's a mix of things. Like Piaget was right in his own way when it comes to like the basic, the core of how our brain functions and the essential stages that we go through are kind of similar. But then there's also we have to take into account the aspect of culture and all of that as you elaborated using the African person
Yes.
and that example.
Yes.
So both.
Yes, yes. So that also brings me to the fact that in psychology and human behavior, nothing can really be seen in two binaries, that either it is a yes or either it is a complete no. Because development is so unique, it is so specific to each individual, and we know that human behavior is so complex. So often some things are left to our own interpretations, the way how we want to make sense of our theories. But since we are preparing for an entrance exam and we know that NTA is going to have one particular answer key and NTA does not care about our own beliefs and interpretations, that's why we will have to stick with what the book is saying. And according to the book, Piaget's theory, according to him, development is universal. So we'll have to go with this, regardless of whatever our belief is. Okay. So these are the two important points given by his theory. Now, another thing that Piaget says that development is discontinuous. What does it mean that development is discontinuous? It doesn't mean that एक बार कोई डेवलप हो रहा था फिर उसकी डेवलपमेंट डिसकंटिन्यू हो गई कि उसने डेवलप करना ही बंद कर दिया. That is not what discontinuous means. The meaning of discontinuous is that development happens in stages. Okay, that's the only meaning of discontinuous, that it happens in stages. And when I was, preparing for this, I thought of giving you this example that let's say that this is the course of development and it has been divided into 3 stages. This is the sensory motor stage, this is the pre-operational stage, this is the concrete operational stage, and this is the formal operational stage. So you can see how clearly defined it is. You can see how each of these is so separated, and it's the fact that every stage has its own unique qualities. A child in sensory motor will have different capacities altogether. A child in pre-operational will have different ways of learning and interacting with the environment. A child with concrete operational will be so different. So discontinuous means nothing but development happens in stages. Each of these stages is separate. It is clearly cut and clearly defined. And every stage is something different, and every new stage brings a sudden change and a significant shift in abilities and thinking from the previous stage. Okay, that is discontinuous development. And every developmental psychologist who has given stages in his theory, that means he is saying development is discontinuous. So can you tell me some more psychologists whose theory of development has been given in stages? एक तो पियाजे ही है, but who are more psychologists who have given theories of development in stages? Can you name them? Yes, Erikson is one who has given how many stages of development? 8 stages. Yes, correct. And Freud also, psychosexual stages. How many stages in Freud's theory of psychosexual development? Oral, anal, phallic, latency, genital. Yes. So you are right. And also, this also reminds me that CUET-PG has their very favorite question where they will give you the stages in a jumbled order and you have to correct it in the correct chronological order. Okay. So let's do it for the Erikson's 8 stages. So tell me that what is the first Erikson stage out there? Because this is a very frequently asked question. Every year they give key, put it in the correct chronological order. They'll jumble it and you have to do it. Yes, Sanjana is right. The first one is trust versus mistrust. What is the second stage in Erikson's development? Yes, autonomy versus shame and self-doubt. Good. And what is the third one? Initiative versus guilt. Correct. What is the fourth one? Industry versus inferiority. Next, adolescence में कौन सी आती है? जिससे हमने recently, and some of us may still be going through that. Which one is the adolescence one? Where something happens, we don't know who I am, what is happening. Yeah. Identity versus role confusion. Yes. Now after that, adulthood में आ जाओ तो कौन सी stages होती है इसके बाद? I'm giving you a hint that where is love? I want love in my life. I'm single. I don't like to be single. Yes. Intimacy versus isolation. Then इसके बाद कौन सी आती है? We have 2 more left. Yes, generativity versus stagnation. And then the last stage, which one is that जो एकदम end में आती है? The last stage is integrity versus despair. Yes. So you all are right, and it's good that you remember the order. And not just the order that's important to be remembered, but you also have to remember key each stage is associated with which stage of life. Is it your um, adolescence? Is it your middle adulthood? Is it your late adulthood? Is it your preschool years? You have to remember that. Along with that, we also have to remember that what is the age of all of these stages, okay? We also have to remember that what is the virtue of each stage. So that's a different thing. That's something we'll do when we are doing Erickson, but just this came in the topic, so thought of telling you what is important for entrance perspective. Okay. So, yes. Now tell me that Vygotsky's theory is discontinuous or continuous? Yes, because Vygotsky has not given any stages, right? So it is a continuous theory. तो जिसने भी stages दिए हैं, that automatically becomes discontinuous. That's a cue for you to remember. Okay, and Piaget follows this model, hence his theory is discontinuous development value. That children go through 4 stages, and each stage represents a completely new way of thinking. And that's because, like, you cannot expect a child in pre-operational stage to show the capacities of concrete operational stage or formal operational stage, right? You cannot expect a formal operational person to behave like sensory motor person because it's discontinuous. So we have an MCQ here to practice everything we've done so far. So what do you think is the answer of this? Discontinuous development suggests a staircase-like progression in abilities. That's first statement. And continuous development implies a steady, smooth slope in growth. What do you think is the answer? And this is like a classic way of CUET PG questioning. They will give you 2 statements and you have to tell whether all of them are right or wrong, or if one of them is correct and incorrect. So you already see some participation in the chat box. People are saying that A is the correct answer and you all are right. So A is the correct answer because we just did this. And if you also want an analogy to understand discontinuous better, then this staircase is the correct example because it's happening one step at a time and each step is different from the previous one. So that's a good analogy for you. Now we have a few more basic key terminologies and concepts that we need to do, which are schemes, mental representations, concept, mental images. So why don't you all think of the word cake and tell me that what comes to mind as you hear that? Any memories related to cake or any visuals related to a cake, that how does a cake look like, or any beliefs related to a cake? Cake क्या होता है, cake क्यों होता है, कब cake खाते हैं? So what do you think about that? So birthday, chocolate, birthday smash, nice. Sweet, occasions, happy moments, celebrations, celebration, any event. Tell me more about what picture do you get when you think of the word cake? What picture comes to mind when you think of cake? Sprinkles. Use your visualization, imagination a little. Candles. Okay, think about the picture, like the texture, the color, the shape. Think about that. Okay, cream frosting. Think in terms of the shape, the texture, the color. Round. Okay. Layers. Okay. Colors. There's so many colors of cake, right? Soft. Pink Barbie. Nice. Okay. You know what? आजकल market में like people are so creative. Cakes are not so basic anymore. There are so many types of cakes in the market, like ice cream cake is a cake that has come up recently. Then cupcakes are also some type of cakes, right? Bento cake is also another cake. Cheesecake is also a cake. So Biscoff cheesecake, yes. Tiramisu, yes. So now see that there's so much that comes to your mind when you think of the word cake. Now, using all these examples, we'll be understanding what is a scheme, what is a mental image and what is a concept. Okay. So when you say that cake is something that is eaten on birthdays, cake is something that is cut on celebrations, cake is something that has candles that are supposed to be blown off, and cake is something that is cut with a knife and person a person comes and distributes it to others. So this particular set of knowledge, this particular set of patterns of thought that you have about this cake, this particular belief that you have about the cake that you hold in your mind, what do you think it is out of all these points given? What do you think मैंने जो सारा बोला वो क्या है केक के बारे में? Cake is supposed to be eaten on birthdays, and it has candles on top of it, which is blown off by the birthday person. Yes, so you all are right. It's schemes. Schemes are nothing but organized mental structures or patterns of thought that we use to interpret and respond to experiences. Okay. And of course, nobody is like born with a scheme. Some people would some psychologists believe this idea that schemes are built with your experience, with age, the different things that happen with you. On the basis of that, you develop these schemes. So, like a 1-year-old child doesn't understand much. Let's say when the child is 3-4 years old, खुद की बर्थडे पार्टी में जा रहे देख रहे कि आज मेरा बर्थडे है, आज केक आया है, केक के ऊपर कैंडल्स लगी, everyone is clapping for me and I'm cutting the cake. So yeah, that is what comes under schemes, and these are things that you use to make sense of the world around you. You interpret these the world around you using your schemes. Okay. But when you say that a cake is round, a cake is brown in color, a cake is white in color, or a cake is square in shape, or it is heart shaped, or it is red in color, or it has a very glossy finish, or it has a matte finish, or it is a little textured because of the flakes or the sprinkles, or it has layers on top of it. So, this visual that you are having in your mind, what is it called? From the key term that you see in front of you. The way how it looks, the color, the texture, the shape. What is it? From the PPT, from the 4 words that you see? Yes, it is mental image. Right? So mental image is nothing but the visualization of the object that you're talking about, anything that comes to your mind. So it's internal visualization of the cake. Mental image is the internal visualization of the cake. How does the cake look like? What is the color of the cake? What's the shape of the cake? What's the texture of the cake? ठीक है? And of course, it's foundational for imagination. जब तक आपको पता ही नहीं होगा कि mental image कैसी है, तो आप imagine कैसे करोगे? You were able to imagine the cake only because you have a mental image of the cake, right? Without the mental image, you wouldn't have been able to tell me that it looks like this, it is of this color. And like it's important for memory also, because then only you'll be able to tell that on my last birthday I was eating a vanilla cake, it was white. Because of memory only you're able to do this. Now when we say that cakes in the market have come under different categories, and cheesecake is one category, then ice cream cake is one category, then cupcake is one category. So when we group different cakes into different categories, that helps us to classify the cakes under different types. So what is that called? Yes. So concept is nothing but categorization of something into different groups so that we can organize it better. Okay. So to summarize it all in 2-3 lines, schemes is all the mental structure or the thought patterns that you have in mind that help you interpret and make sense of your experiences and the world around you. Mental image is the internal visualization of the thing, and concept is the way how you categorize it into different groups and organize it. Okay. And both mental image and concept come under mental representation. So mental representation is just your internal ability to have mental image and concepts. Okay. And it is one of the beginning of symbolic thought, we can say. And symbolic thought कौन से stage में सबसे important होता है? Out of the 4 stages of Piaget, symbolic thought is the most important. In which stage? Which stage में ये शुरू होता है, I can say. In which stage children actually start to have the imaginative qualities and visualize. Yes, that is pre-operational stage. Tell me that if I ask someone in sensory motor stage that tell me how does a cake look like? Imagine a cake and tell me how does it look like. Will they be able to do it or not? Yes or no? Yes, they will not be able to do it because children in the sensory motor stage don't have the capacity of symbolic thought. Hence, they cannot do mental representation. Even their linguistic development hasn't happened yet, so they will not be able to convey it. So, yeah. So, there's a question in the chat box that can you explain schemas again with an example? How is it different from mental representation? Okay. So, you can say that all the belief systems or all the thought patterns or all the informative bit that you have about a cake. Or maybe let's remove the cake. Let's think about college, okay? Because you all want to go to a college. So schemes like we go to college for studying. And after being a student, we get to do assignments. College life is fun because we make friends. And after my college is completed, I'll become a psychologist. College fees is very expensive. So all of these statements that I just made, these are some thought patterns. These are some thought systems. These are some organized mental ways of thinking that you have in mind. And you are using it to make sense of the world around you. So this is known as a schema. But when I say mental representation, so again, here in college, it will be like a building which is white in color and it has many floors and it has a lift, it has an escalator, it has many students of different ages, it has a playground, it has a library. So that is an internal visualization, that will be mental image. And when I go to categorize it under concepts, then it will be like medical college, business college, fashion college, right? So this is how ये categories में divide हो गया. So whose question was it? It was the question of Ashmita. Did you understand now?
Yeah, it's clear. Thank you.
Okay, great. So we are now coming to the next concept, which is known as adaptation versus organization. So if I have to give the difference in one word, I would say that adaptation is a more overt process and organization is a more covert process. Does someone know the difference between overt and covert? It is a term from behaviorism. Does someone know the meaning of overt and covert? Yes. Overt is observable. It is something outside, I can say. जो आप कर रहे हो और सामने वाले को दिख सकता है. Overt is observable, something that you do outside. But covert is more internal, something that you cannot really see. So it's like if I am under a lot of stress, I'm under a lot of anxiety. So I am having physical palpitations and my hands are shaking, so others can see it. So that is overt. But all the overthinking that's going on within my mind, that is an internal process, so that is covert. Okay. So adaptation is an overt process and organization is a covert process. Now, what is the meaning of adaptation? Adaptation just means that, when we build cognitive schemas by direct interaction with the environment, that is known as adaptation. Okay. So let's say that there is a child who is just 6 months old, 7, 8 months old, okay? And you know that at this age, children often interact with their environment by touching it, by putting it in their mouth, and just seeing it, bringing it very close to their eyes. So let's say that I've given a very shiny ball or something that plays music to a child. Okay? The child is putting in the mouth, exploring the texture of it, touching it, getting sensation, understanding what it is. So this is how the child is building schemes through direct interaction with the environment. That is known as adaptation. Now, adaptation has two processes: assimilation and accommodation. So this is very important topic and students often get confused in this. So I will recommend you to pay attention here. So assimilation is when we use our existing schemas to make sense of the world as it is. Okay. So it's like that there is a 4-year-old child who was watching some cartoon. Let's say this child was watching Doraemon or something. This child was watching Shinchan. Okay, let's say 4-year-old child is watching Shinchan. Now Shinchan has this white dog known as Shiro. Okay, so this child goes outside with the parents and he sees a white dog going. So the child is able to recognize and say dog. So that is known as assimilation, when the child is using his existing schemes to make sense of the experiences around. Okay. So this child who knows that dog is someone who can be white in color, he has 4 legs and he also has a tail, small ears, furry texture. तो ऐसा कुछ है तो मतलब वो डॉग है. So this is known as assimilation. When you use the current knowledge, जितनी भी knowledge आपके पास अभी है, आप उसको use कर रहे हो to make sense of the world. That is known as assimilation. Okay. But then later he was traveling with his parents and he saw a horse. Now horse is also white in color. Horse also has a tail. Horse is also furry. Horse also has 4 legs. ठीक है? वो बोले दोबारा dog. But the parents will say that this is not a dog, this is a horse. And dog and horse are two different animals, right? A horse is someone who is a little bigger in size, and a horse lives in a different place. It has different eating habits. This is how both the animals are different, right? So अब यहाँ पे तो child को confusion होगी ना, उसे ये चीज नहीं पता थी. So the child has to modify his existing schemes. He has to add new things to his existing schemes and maybe delete a few things previously so that he can fit the new knowledge that he was not able to do previously. Okay, so that is known as accommodation. So to go over it once again, assimilation is when you use your existing schemes to make sense of new experiences. मतलब आपको जितना पता है उतना ही यूज करके इंटरप्रिटेशन कर दोगे. But accommodation is when you realize that your existing schemes are outdated and you are encouraged to delete them or modify them or add new things to them so that you can make interpretations in a correct way. Okay. Now the child is able to differentiate between a dog and horse and he understands the difference between both of them. That is accommodation. So I know this can be a little confusing, but if you all have understood the difference between assimilation and accommodation, then please yes in the chat box. And if you have not understood, then write no and then explain it again. If there's someone who has not understood, you can write no also, no problem in that. Okay, so everyone is saying yes only mostly. So great. Thank you for participating. Let's move ahead now. Now, as I said, that organization is just a very covert mental process which is happening and in which the child is rearranging a lot of things, connecting a lot of things within his mind itself, right? That not all 4-legged animals are dogs, not all white animals are dogs. Maybe the difference also depends upon the size and where they live and what they eat and the sound that they make, right? Horse makes a different sound and dog makes a different sound. So this rearranging of the knowledge that was happening inside the mind, that is known as organization. Okay. So this entire process of assimilation and accommodation that we talked about, it actually goes through a cycle. It actually goes through a process. And इसी process के through दो चीजें निकल के आती हैं which are known as equilibrium and disequilibrium. Now, what is the meaning of equilibrium? It means a sense of balance. It means a sense of homeostasis. I can say, like in the very English language, layman language, that's what equilibrium means, right? But in Piaget's language, in psychology, equilibrium means when you are basically doing assimilation, that when you are using your existing schemes to make sense of the environment. तो उसको इक्विलिब्रियम कहते हैं. So basically you can say that assimilation is equilibrium. Okay, and this feels very easy because यहाँ पे आपको ज्यादा एफर्ट नहीं लगाना पड़ रहा है. यहाँ पे you're just being as it is. You're not making any effort to learn something new. ठीक है, so that is equilibrium. But disequilibrium is when you realize that the current knowledge that you have is not helping you anymore. It has become very outdated, and you need to learn new things. You need to challenge your older ways of thinking so that you can learn new things. So, in this way, you are accommodating, and that is known as disequilibrium. And it's not something bad, it's something very important for development to happen because as humans, we have to grow. So we have to learn new things every day. We have to let go of older ways of learning and thinking. So when that happens, it is known as disequilibrium. Okay. So this is the main difference between equilibrium and disequilibrium. And equilibration is a mechanism in which both assimilation and accommodation is balanced. So like you can say that this on and off process from assimilation to accommodation and back and forth, this entire process is known as equilibration. Okay. Now tell me that for constant growth to happen, should disequilibrium be more or should equilibrium be more? If disequilibrium should be more, you can write D. If equilibrium should be more, you can write E. For constant growth to happen, for you to keep on learning new things, what is more important, D or E? Yes, most of you are saying D. Someone has said E also. So is it a mistake or did you not understand? You want me to explain again? Avni, you have said E. Do you want me to explain again or did you understand any confusion?
Yeah, I want you to explain again. Maybe I got confused.
Okay, so where exactly is the confusion? What is that you have understood?
Matlab I was not here, so I just read and I answer, but maybe I didn't get.
Okay, so let me rephrase the question. You know what is assimilation and accommodation, right? Have you understood that much?
Yes, I understood that.
Okay, so if equilibrium is assimilation and if disequilibrium is accommodation, now tell me that in order for the child to learn new and more things, then which one should happen at a greater pace, disequilibrium or equilibrium?
Disequilibrium.
Yes, so did you understand now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, correct. Okay, so there is a complete cycle of equilibrium, disequilibrium, assimilation, accommodation, and we'll explain that cycle with the help of these animals. So let's say that the child, so we're starting here at the current knowledge that I'm circling right now. We're starting from here, okay? So the child already has some information. The child already knows that, birds are some creatures and they fly in the sky and they have wings, they have a beak. So this is what the child already knows. Okay. Now one day this child went out with his parents and then he saw an eagle or a crane in the sky. Now he'll see that, oh, this eagle has such big wings and it is also flying in the sky. And this is somewhere fitting in with the information that I already know. So, this is a bird in the sky. So, did he make a correct decision? Did he correctly interpret it as the bird? Yes or no? Did the child make a correct decision? You can write yes or no in the chat box. Yes. So when the child is doing this, is the child doing assimilation or accommodation? Yes. The child is doing assimilation. Yes. So the parents will say, wow, you are so smart, very nice, congratulations, very good. They will appreciate the child. And this way the guess fits. लर्निंग इज रीइंफोर्स्ड, लर्निंग इज स्ट्रेंथन कि हाँ मेरे को सही लगता है, जो भी जिसके पास भी विंग्स होते हैं, जो भी व्हाइट ब्लैक कलर का होता है वो तो बर्ड ही होता है. ठीक है. सो इक्विलिब्रियम इज मेंटेन्ड. बट देन लेटर द चाइल्ड इज वॉचिंग टीवी and then he's seeing that again a white and black colored creature came who has some wings, who also has, feet like just like the eagle had, and he also has a beak like this, same color. तो वो इसको देख के बोलता है बर्ड. सो टेल मी दैट इस बार असिमुलेशन था या अकोमोडेशन, क्योंकि पेरेंट्स आके बोल रहे हैं कि ये तो बर्ड नहीं है. This is a penguin. It's a completely different thing. Penguins cannot fly in the sky and they live in Antarctica. They don't live in India like this essay. So then the child has to change his current knowledge patterns and he has to understand that this is something different, right? He has to update his current schemes. And with updated knowledge, he is consolidating that knowledge. So this is how accommodation has happened. And it's like a to and fro process. It keeps on happening continuously because all of us learn new things daily, and it's never possible that we learn everything in the world. We keep learning and learning every day. So this process is also ongoing. So this is this entire concept. Now let's practice some MCQs. That when a child sees a zebra for the first time and calls it a striped horse, which process are they using? So you all are saying B in the chat box, which is correct क्योंकि उसने गलत कर दिया ना. Tell me that when the parents are correcting and saying that it is not a striped horse, it is a zebra. So then what will be the answer? Yes, accommodation will be the answer. Yes. So tell me that here abstract reasoning is also written. So abstract reasoning is the hallmark of which stage of Piaget's development? 1, 2, 3, 4. Abstract reasoning कौन से वाले स्टेज में होता है? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, it's 4. And I wonder why someone is saying 2. So is that a mistake or any confusion there?
It
Abstract
was a
reasoning.
mistake.
Okay, okay. But फॉर्मल ऑपरेशनल स्टेज में एब्स्ट्रैक्ट रीजनिंग होता है, राइट? अगर आपको नहीं पता तो थोड़ा एज का भी अप्रोक्सीमेशन लगा के बता सकते हैं, क्योंकि किस एज के बाद कैपेसिटी आती है करने की. ओके, सो नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन, that which concept involves changing an existing schema or creating a new one to deal with the information? Accommodation, correct. Now, what happens during equilibration and Piaget's theory? Yes, C is the correct answer. It is a balance between both of them. And always remember, I can also write it like this. मैंने अपने नोट्स में ऐसे लिखा था, मुझे इससे याद हुआ था that this equilibrium में it is accommodation that's happening at a faster pace than assimilation. Okay. So you can also like make equations like this, so it's easier to remember. The equilibration is like a balance between both of them. Okay, so next question. Which of the following scenarios best reflects the presence of disequilibrium in cognitive development? So I think only 2 people have answered this so far. I'm waiting for more people. Yes. So you all are saying D, which is the correct answer. Okay. So I hope that everything that we have done today, you have understood that there is no question in that. If there is any question in everything we've done so far, I'll go to the slides once again and you can ask me any questions from these terms about
Why is why is adaptation called an overt process and organization is a covert process?
because adaptation is something that happens with direct interaction with the environment. When you are given a bird in front of you, you see the bird, you interact with the bird. You see a penguin in front of you, you watch Shinchan's dog on TV. So like this has happening, outside in front of you. You can see it. You're interacting with the material. So because this is so overt, it's so observable, it's something you do outside rather than an internal process. That is why it's known as adaptation. Because overt है ना, क्योंकि आप बाहर कर रहे हो, दूसरे भी देख सकते हैं, दूसरे आपको फीडबैक दे सकते हैं. So did you understand?
Yeah, got it.
Okay. So now I was just asking if you have any questions from everything we've done so far about these key terms: genetic epistemology, constructivism, discontinuous development. Just scrolling through the slides, and if you have any question, you can just stop and say. So do we have any questions? If no, you can. Okay. I don't think there are any questions. Okay, great. So I was apprehensive as to whether we'll be able to complete the entire topic. And I was right, because it is a long topic and 1 hour is not enough to do it. But I'm glad that जितना भी हमने करा है, उतने में clarity है, because we have a lot of time. We have 8 months until the exam. So at this point, it's important कि हम जितना भी कर रहे हैं, कम से कम उसको अच्छे से करें. उसको इतने अच्छे से करें कि जो भी MCQ आते हैं हम वो solve कर पा रहे हैं, right? So it's quality over quantity, and I'm glad that you have understood it. So, like, I wanted to do all this today, but there's no time for that, unfortunately. So, any questions that you have? When will you be covering the other left out part? So, we are actually launching a master's entrance preparation course where we are covering the entire syllabus, not just cognitive development, but the entire lifespan psychology and every subject in entire psychology that's relevant to these entrances. And our classes are starting on Thursday, the coming Thursday. So yeah, like, if anybody is interested in that, I can share the details. I'll also take you through the details for that. Please explain schema again. So schemas, you can say in very simple language, are mental frameworks and belief systems and thought patterns that you have about particular objects that help you make sense of the world around you. So examples like people go to college for studying. That is also a schema. Or something like, let me think of an example. Indians are very helpful. Just a very random example. That is also a schema. Yes, like a ball is round. That is also a schema. So will you start introduction to psychology there as you discussed? Yes, because we'll go in the order, right? So I'll tell you that what is our order going to be. So we have made an entire calendar. So you can see it here that in August, actually, classes are starting on 31st July, but that's the same as August only. So we're starting with general psychology, and this is the correct order that we'll be following. Starting with general psych, then a mock on general psych, then in September, stats research and testing, and MCQs in between classes and mock tests after every subject is done. October is for biopsych and lifespan. November is for abnormal and counseling. December is for social and IO. Then January is purely for revision. We only solve live MCQs in class from previous year papers. So every year we are able to solve 500 MCQs at least, because we've been doing these batches over the past 2 years now. And our experience in the past 2 years is that 500 we are easily able to solve in 1 month. Then February plus March are for your own revision and mock tests. You will be given access to 25 mock tests on a computer-based portal, which has similar interface and similar portal as the one that is used by CUET, PG, and other entrance exams. So that is about it. And like you have access to everything. Live classes like the one that you had today. Then you have had an idea of my teaching style. So I'll be the one who's taking this. So similar teaching style. PPTs also you saw today. You saw that MCQs are integrated in the PPT. Mock tests, I already told you. Chapter-wise MCQs also there at the end of the chapter. So we have MCQs in between the slides and at the end of the chapter also. Then we have cheat sheets also, but we open access to it towards the revision months. Then we also have an add-on option of one-on-one personalized sessions. It's actually not there in the course. It's an add-on option that you can go ahead with only if you want. So all this is included, and 8-month course, August to March, days, Mondays and Thursdays, 7 to 8:30 p.m. Classes on Zoom online. So yeah, that is about the course, and like the structure is also very well planned. I'll say that we'll be completing the syllabus in the first 6 months from August to Jan. MCQ preparation will go hand in hand, mock test will go hand in hand, and the remaining 2 months will be for only MCQ practice and revision. We'll also have Q&A sessions by our team members from different colleges who will come and talk about things from that particular college. People from TISC, Rice, BU, IIPR, Xavier's, and all the colleges that are there in FSU, they'll come and take sessions. So that's also there. So yeah, and we will send this website if anybody wants to have a look at this. They can see what all is offered. There will be consistency, because like it gets very hard to manage your college and entrance prep together. But if you attend our classes just twice a week, your syllabus will be done with us, so you don't have to worry कि कैसे करूँ क्या करूँ, because हम करा देंगे वो. Our lectures are also very focused. We don't talk about everything that exists in the world, because you need to have very focused preparation, only focusing on the things that matter, information that's important, and not everything that exists out there. So yeah, that is about the course, and like these are some feedbacks from our students. A lot of feedbacks at the end also. So you can just check them. A lot of our students have received admission into different courses also, different courses, different colleges like Christ, TIS, BU. They've scored very high in CUET as well. So you can just check these feedbacks if you want. We'll share the website. And if you want some more demo lectures, then they're uploaded on our YouTube channel also. You can watch it. So yeah, that is about our course. And if you have any questions about lifespan or anything about our course, then you can ask us. We have group discounts going on right now, and the link to register is here in the website itself. If you just click here on enroll now, then it'll take you to the registration link and you can enroll from there. So if anybody is interested, you can register before Thursday, preferably by Wednesday max, because we'll also take some time to add you to the group to orient you. And we also have already had an orientation lecture a few days back. So please enroll in advance so that you have time to watch that before you attend our first class. And we also have opened a mock test, which is like a baseline assessment. So if you are enrolling, please do so in time so that you have time to watch the video also and attempt the assessment also, and then you can come and take the class. Otherwise, it will just be like a lot of backlog for you. I am actually looking forward for counseling as a field. So do I have to go through every book as you shared in master's group, or every field of just counseling? You have to go through every book that I have shared, because even though you want to get into counseling program, but this master's entrance syllabus of counseling courses involves every subject of psychology. General psych, stats research, lifespan, biopsych, disorders, testing. Questions from this are asked in entrances and interviews for counseling courses. If you go to Christ counseling, you'll see that they ask questions on this in the entrance and interview. Same for Xavier, same for tests. So you have to study everything and not just counseling. Will you conduct mock tests separately also outside this course? I would just love to practice more. So that is something we open access to towards the future months, like towards December, January. You can say abhi ke liye it's just the course, and mocks are only available in the later months. So are there any more questions from your side? It can be regarding anything. It can be regarding the course or lifespan or entrance, anything. We are here for some 5-10 minutes to take your questions. Or if we are done for the day, if nothing else is left, you can just give a thumbs up, and I'll know that we have wrapped it for today. Thank you, Sanjana. Thank you, Fida. How to prepare for aptitude and other things for counseling for Christ. So, just lead. Maths के लिए you can use NCERT of class 8-9. For English, you can use any vocabulary book like Word Power Made Easy. For logical reasoning, you can find your online PDFs. And for GK, you can watch any YouTube channel that you like. It can be Unacademy, it can be Byju's, anyone that you like. Just choose anyone and refer to it. Okay, so any more questions? Okay, so if no questions are there, so let's end here. And it was nice talking to you all. And I also saw names of some of our course students. So it was nice to meet you even before our first class. And you also got a head start, I can say, and an idea of my, quality of teaching. And we would love if you would write some feedback in the group. It will also help me know better that what are you liking out of my teaching style? Is there something that you want me to change, something else that you want to see? That will also be a great help to us. So, yes, please write your feedback in the group. It will be very helpful to us. And thank you so much for joining. And I'm excited to see you all on Thursday in our class. So, take care and all the best. Bye bye.